All right, welcome everyone, and certainly Drew, welcome. And first and foremost, congratulations to you, man. You are now the
Thank you.
newest and proudest owner of a Speedy Freight franchise brought to you by Better Days. So, hey, man, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Super excited.
So, you are an interesting story to me. I wanted to bring you on today. I think your background is fascinating. I think how you went through the process of finding a franchise is fascinating. And I think, all cards on the table, you've got all the skill sets and background, and I'm betting that you're going to be wildly successful with this brand. So I wanted to kind of get day zero on the cards and record that here. Let's get
Awesome.
straight into it. I want to
Sure.
start with a little bit about where you were in your career and what was the pain point? At what point, let's talk about what you were doing and at what point you decided enough's enough. I'm done with corporate America. I got to own something.
Yeah. Yeah, man. That's good. So a total of 16 years with in the restaurant business, all with Chick-fil-A. So amazing company. And as a matter of fact, I think a lot of the skill sets that I do bring come from so much time with a company with a great culture. Recently, I have spent the last 7 years as the general manager of a store here in North Georgia, and with a franchise owner who owns three Chick-fil-A's. And so I was from the ground up 2 months before we opened. He hired me on as the general manager, and I have been building that business as the general manager for again almost 7 years now. Super busy store, and again it was a good gig and I say it's more than a gig. It was a good career to get me through my really through most of my son's high school. It was consistent. The hours were it was a 24/7 deal, on call all the time, but it was good to get us to where we wanted to go, but it was good to get us to this point, which is getting my son Malachi, he's senior in high school, getting ready to go off to college. But quite honestly, I got to the point, and this has been, in the last couple of years, I think. Started before that, but just realizing that, I'm kind of maxing out doing what I'm doing. I don't really have any like growth options like within this path. And realistically, I feel like, I've been able to build some skill sets that I could have a lot more freedom and make a lot more money long term, working harder, I think, for my family versus for someone else. And so that was really what helped us pull the trigger, is that, yeah, it was freedom. It was, again, I already had the skill sets to be able to do it. And I was just really limiting myself on number one, on the amount of money that we could make, and even the amount of influence we could have in the community, but also just on freedom of time. I want to be 100% free to do as I choose, to work as hard as I want, or to not at times. And yeah, that was what led us into this idea of going into franchising. So
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's roughly 15,000 people in a calendar year that decide enough's enough. They decide I've hit the
right.
ceiling too. They're
Yep.
deciding I need to make more money. I need to the freedom, like you said, to spend time watching my kid kind of move into the next phase of his life. And you're one of them. And everybody has a different path of how they get there. And most people kind of come to that realization and then will actively go to Google, find a franchise broker, start searching. As I understand it, you weren't really looking, and then Better Days came along. Talk us through that.
Yeah. Yeah. I had poked around, like, I mean, I'd really just kind of poked around and in my algorithm on Facebook and Instagram. I clicked on something, some franchise. It was some franchise. And I even sent like an interest form in for this. It was a breakfast restaurant. And then from there, though, I started getting these. yeah, I guess just it entered my algorithm. So the more time I spent on Facebook, Instagram, the more, um, you know, uh, you know, consultants or just franchises themselves were just popping up, and so it was like every third slide was something in franchising, and so man, I just actually saw a Better Days, and I filled out like three kind of interest forms in the same day, and I feel Better Days was one of those, and it was really it was actually an ad like targeting like Chick-fil-A. It had something about Chick-fil-A in there, and so it caught my eye, and then I get a call. I think it was either that night or the next day of from Rob from Better Days. And so, yeah, I was just kind of poking around, I guess. I wasn't actively like hard pursuing. And as a matter of fact, the first time I talked to Rob from Better Days, I had talked to a franchise, a recruiter for a specific franchise, and I was exhausted. It had been a long day. I had a call scheduled with Rob. I didn't even remember which like interest form that it was, and I was like, man, I just want to take a nap. It was like 5 in the evening, and I even told my wife, I was like, I'm so tired right now. And she's like, no, you. I said, she said, I need you. You probably need to talk to this person just to figure like see who it is, and I'm so glad I did. um, I had no idea what I was doing, man. Again, I don't know what my plan was. Maybe it was to go and apply for different franchises, which would have been a terrible idea. Honestly, I would have wasted so much time, and no way I would have found what we found. I was looking at just restaurants with it being in my background. Anyway, talked to Rob that night and just had an immediate connection. Understood really now what a franchise consultant could do. And then those next couple of calls were just it really like hit me how critical this was. And then toward the end of the story, like looking back, there's no way that I would have wanted to do it without working with Better Days.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome to hear. And it's interesting, right? There's a lot of preconceived notions like what a
Mhm.
franchise is and what the process might be
Yep.
looking like. And you used a good
Yeah.
word. It was you said you spoke to a recruiter, and that's really what they are. That they're recruiters.
Yep.
But it's interesting when you start going through the process. A lot of folks don't even realize that the model exists the way in which exists, I should say, in terms of the franchise model. It helps
Yeah.
so many people overcome those problems. Some of the ones you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
a ceiling on income, freedom once
Yep.
again. And then
Yep.
what's really interesting is most people then, once they get through that first barrier of, okay, now I understand the franchise model, I understand kind of the risks, I understand the upside here, I understand what's going on. A lot of people have preconceived notions about, well, what a good franchise is and what they're destined to
Yeah.
do. And you're another
Yep.
really interesting example because you've got all the skill sets of someone that should or could be running a restaurant franchise, and there's hundreds or thousands of those. But based on what you and Rob discovered in the process, the ideal franchise had nothing to do with a restaurant. So, do you want to talk us through the process that led you there and then kind of talk us through why you decided to go with the brand that you did?
Sure. Yeah. And I get really excited about this. I've shared this story a few times with just friends who have asked me what I'm doing. Again, long term Chick-fil-A. You're leaving. It's crazy. And so, I had this preconceived notion that, yeah, I was really good at running a restaurant. So it makes sense to run a restaurant. And right. And when I think of franchising, I actually thought, okay, well, franchising is running a restaurant. I really did. I think my brain was just so narrowed in on that franchising was the equivalent, like it was equal to restaurant. And so I was just so blind to know that there were so many different opportunities out there. And then we started looking, even in the beginning, the, the skill sets that I have, though they have worked in the restaurant, they could work just as well or even better in the service industry. And so Rob really helped me figure that out. Like I didn't, I'd never had that. I'd never had the thought. Again, it didn't occur to me that the same skill sets could be, which is really just leading people, building great relationships, solving problems, which actually ended up in logistics, specifically with Speedy Freight. But he helped me realize that number one, there's opportunities for less overhead in the beginning with a service industry franchise, and that started getting me really excited. And even so, like I started looking at the eventual like profit margin opportunity, and it's for me it seems like there's actually a greater opportunity there with less risk, I guess. And not even just like less risk in the sense of just financial risk, but you start opening yourself up to multiple restaurants, and it's just, again, one restaurant's hard enough, and so you start opening up to really make the kind of income that you want to. I mean, it's going to take a significant amount of restaurants to make that happen. Whereas, there's so many moving parts. You've got, you're serving food, you've got, health risk, all that. And in the service industry, it just eliminated some of that. So really what I felt like is it eliminated some of the stress that I've been feeling even as a manager of a restaurant. And so, which would have been even multiplied as an owner. So, because I have experience with kind of understanding that stress level and the liability and all that. Um, and I realized, hey, in the service industry, there's businesses out there you can make just as much or more as a restaurant. And again, for some people, the restaurant is the right move. But for me, and kind of what I wanted to do and how I wanted to scale it quick, because the goal is to scale it really quick, and to grow it, fairly large. Service industry just made more sense. And so, basically, Rob went through and he gave me a few options. He said, hey, I'm going to show you a couple of restaurants, but I'm going to try to, he was like, I'm going to show you a few service industry. He showed me some of the numbers, and then from there, I just started to kind of think. I thought through it, talked with my wife. I was like, I just really felt this. It made sense to go with the lower initial kind of investment, lower overhead, I guess, even, that could be this, could be a much more significant opportunity in the future. So, and I
Yeah.
guess what, yeah, and I guess maybe kind of what led. You may go into kind of what led to Speedy Freight specifically.
Sure.
Yeah. So it was funny on the end of this first call. He showed me, I think, about 6 or 7 brands, maybe 8, somewhere around that. And it was like it was the very last brand. He showed me some really good brands, which I actually went a little further down the road with. Was really close with. I mean, I felt in my brain that Everline was another company that I was really heavily considering. But he mentioned the very last thing in this call. He's like, "Hey, I want to throw one more out there to you. They're brand new with us, and so they're brand new with us, but I think it could be a good fit for you." And it was Speedy Freight, which is third party logistics. And he sent me the video and said, "Hey, anyway." So in the video, there was one line that Dana said in this little intro video, that they give you just to give you a brief kind of who maybe be a good fit. And they just said something in there. Hey, if you don't have to know logistics. We've got that part. Like, we understand logistics. You need to be good at building relationships and solving problems. And for me, I think in the back of my mind, I knew at that point, great at relationships, great at solving problems. It was a low investment, low overhead with a really high return opportunity. And so, even though I was talking to some others, I think I knew in my head at that point, hearing that this is this is going to be a good fit. I've told people, like, it's so shocking, and I've told this story so many times. It's just shocking to see someone who's been in the restaurants like, why did you go into third party or shipping logistics? They don't seem to connect. But I think what I have discovered through talking with Rob, through talking with Franchise Fastlane and Speedy Freight, is that uh, you get an idea of what your skill sets are. But if you've got some good skill sets that work in the world of entrepreneurship, leading, building, growing, all those things, then they a lot of times they can translate to another business pretty easily, and maybe even better than they've been used in your current, for me, in the restaurant business. So
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. And again, I applaud you for having the ability to kind of see past the initial obvious choice for you, right? Which would have been a restaurant. It's fascinating. I've seen this so much in my 15-year career. Folks that, again, have this preconceived notion of I'm destined
Mhm.
to do this type of franchise.
Yeah.
And it not turning out so well. And it's really, in my experience, very rarely about the widget. It's more about making sure that you're anchored in what your goals are, what your skills
Yep.
are, and then the attributes of the brand last. And it sounds like, you
Yep.
you and Rob were able to hold to that anchor and then landed at a brand that you would
Yeah.
never have guessed. And again, that's
Right.
where we see
Yeah.
the best success too. So
Yeah.
congrats
Yeah.
on that. Now,
Thank you.
one of the other preconceived notions that folks kind of have in franchising is, well, you need millions of dollars to own a
Right.
franchise. And,
Yeah.
that's just not the case. We see it time and time again. But, talk us through your process of how we were able to help get you funded and how that kind of worked out for you.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, so kind of going back before my last 7 years. So to give you a history, I was actually my wife and I were on the mission field in a third world country in Uganda, and so we moved from Uganda, third world country, African bush, to Canton 7 years ago to open this store. The reason I say that and why it's important is that we didn't have any money. So we moved back with nothing. We started kind of building from zero again at 37 years old. And that's important because, I think that that's going to be multiplied over the next couple of years, over the next few years. So we were able to, we were able to buy a house and sell a house at the right time, which kind of helped us, have a little bit to start. So we went from zero to the last 7 years. We've been able to build a little bit. Really, we only had liquid capital like 70,000 available to invest, which kind of I was like, man, is there any, before I talked to Rob, I was like, I don't know that this is enough to even get started in anything. And for a lot of things it wasn't. And so even it's funny going back to that one franchise I talked to before I talked to you guys. When I talked to them, they're like, yeah, you don't really have enough net worth to make this happen. They basically were like, yeah, I don't really see this happening with you. Um, and so a little bit discouraging, of course. But again, then I that same night talked to Rob, and was like, no, there's okay. So tell me, there's always more to the story. So tell me, what's your credit like? What's your I know you've got this, little bit of a nest egg here to be able to invest, but what's your credit like? What's your 401k, stuff like that. So as we started digging into it, we realized basically, so he referred me to a great person in funding. And because we did have good credit, so we were able to get some good unsecured funding, plenty to get this thing both started and really, I mean, really kind of had a goal to fund it for, over a year. If we didn't make, if we didn't make a dime, if we didn't make a sale, we're going to be good for a year. And that was kind of the goal for us to go into it. We had to feel like we had a long runway. And then on top of that, we were able to utilize just really a 401k that I've built up over the last 7 years. And so, yeah, the funding options, the funding was there with one of the ladies he referred me to, and then there was a way to go about it to now roll over my 401k and with the Rob's 401k rollover program. So I guess it was just things that I didn't realize were an option. Um, you know, he was able to point me to the right people, and so I think again, I think Rob wasn't he didn't know everything about, all of the funding, but he knew the right people who did. And I think that was like, Better Days has got a great network of people they refer you to. So, I mean, I've worked with the different things with the 401k, I worked with one person. With the rest of my financing or the rest of the funding options, I worked with another person. And yeah, it's all come together. And I think, at this point we've got more than enough to to ensure we have a long enough runway to start succeeding. So
Yeah, that's a great story there. And you guys are the true, we're all cheering for you so hard here because you said it yourself, right? It took you 7 years to go from zero. You worked your butt off in a franchise for somebody else, were able to save a little bit here. Most franchise brands or networks would turn you away, but
Yeah.
you're able to get that relationship going with Rob. And to us that's really important because certainly in the
Mhm.
climate that we're in right now, we feel like you're the type of person, and there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of folks out there like you that have worked so hard, have hit a ceiling. You do deserve more in terms of freedom and earnings and earnings potential, but there's in many cases just this ceiling on getting access to capital and getting access to good franchise brands where you can have a crack at it yourself. And
Right. Right.
I'm just so happy
Yeah.
that you're able to go through that process, get the
Yeah.
funding, get the brand, and more than that, the right attitude too. It's one thing to get funding and get awarded the franchise. It's another thing to make sure that you're properly ready for it. And by ready, we like to see two things. You said it yourself again, you got the right runway. You understand, even if we
Yeah.
don't make a dollar from the first year, that's the right attitude. From there, you've got
Yep.
additional runway. More than that, you understand you've got that 24/7, whatever it takes mentality to get the job done that you've learned. And I think that's what a lot of people need to understand. Yeah, Better Days is now able to help on that funding side, to help find just the best brands, but we
Yeah.
can't help you with the right attitude on, even if you have that, it's going to come down to how hard you're going to work. And you're going to work really hard, probably harder
Yep.
than you've ever worked. But you said it yourself,
Right.
Drew. You prefer to do that for your family where you make the
Yep.
ceiling than somebody else. And, a little bit of
Absolutely.
a rant there, but I'm just so pumped for you, and we're going to be
Sure.
cheering. Now,
Well,
all right, so
sure.
moving the story along, now we've decided, it's an option, and we're looking at a few brands, and you're kind of narrowing in on Speedy Freight. Talk us
Yeah.
through, for the folks behind you that have never even investigated a franchise, what are kind of the major
Yeah.
milestones that you went through to go from, I don't know if I should do this, to, man, I'm pumped to be a franchise owner and own my own business?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Well, first off, let me say it is, especially when you're working a full-time job, on the side, I almost felt like for a second now, if when you're working a full-time job, you're W-2, and then you get into research, it's called the discovery
Uh-huh.
process. And so you start going through the discovery process in franchising, which is basically just a bunch of calls, right? You're discovering what the brand is, what they have to offer. Is it a good fit? You're doing one or two calls a week, and then you may be doing another call, like group call. And so as I was talking to three, I mean, there was one week I think I was on Zoom calls for like 10 hours that week. Because I was talking to three, right? And so I was talking to an individual. I was talking to or I was on a call with one of their current franchise owners, and then I was on a group call, and then I was on a group call with their leadership team. And so, which was super super helpful that we did those calls. Because you started talking, you started seeing which ones like you resonated with. So I think it was overwhelming for about a week, and I had to quickly say, okay, I have three. I think I need to go down to two, just simply because of time. And then there was one of the franchises I was talking to. I loved it, but the 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 territory that I live in was not available, and so that helped. That was an easy decision to kind of move on there, narrowed it down to two. And then, by this point, I had seen the numbers. I had heard from enough franchisees that, hey, this works. We're making money. We're doing really well. Yes, we work hard, which I appreciated hearing because, the make no mistake, from every person I've talked to, it is hard. It is hard, but the return is for yourself, and or the return is for your family or whatever you're working for, right? And so for me, it's for my family, and a great future for them. And so being able to hear that, being able to affirm kind of my feelings, but also, and then I got on one call. I think what my particular milestone came in when I got on a call with a current franchisee from Speedy Freight. And so Speedy Freight started in the UK, and they're brand new to the US. And so I'd heard, hey, this is a sales business. This is a sales business, and it's heavily relying on sales. But in my brain, I had this like I've never been in sales, so I had this preconceived notion of all sales are like car salesman sales, and I'd not I'm not interested in that at all. And so, but I got on a group call with this franchise owner in the UK, and honestly, the dude reminded me of me. And my wife was on the call too. She said the same thing. I was like, he said something, and she was like, "This is you." Said, I'm not a salesperson. I just, I love, well, I can't remember all the things that he said, but basically, I got to see someone that was really important. Seeing a franchise owner that is successful, that kind of, I could see some similarities with how I feel about my future, but also in maybe some of the skill sets. That was a big deal for me. So hearing from other franchisees that it works, because again, these franchise that was probably the most important thing for me because well, one of the most important milestones, I guess, because the franchisees they're not making any more by you coming along board, right? They're just sharing their experience and sharing sharing about their life because they love what they're doing, they love the company. And so I think that was a big milestone, but also being able to get on a call with some of the leadership in the company was really helpful because that's where I discovered and this is more why I chose Speedy Freight, but and not necessarily why I chose just franchising in general. But when I got on a call with some of the leadership, I started feeling and hearing some of the culture and the culture of a company, especially coming from a company that has a great culture. That was gonna be a critical piece for me. Like I had to go with a brand that I could trust the people who were leading it. And so being able to hear some of the sincerity and I am a good judge I'm a pretty good judge of people. So that was, that when I saw it, like I knew it. I was like, okay, yeah, this I can follow this. Like this is a guy that I can trust. And speaking of, the president of the U.S. operations here, Cody, in Texas. So, but kind of going back, like when I knew that franchising was what I was going to do, I'm pretty sure like the first and second call with Rob, I was like, man, the numbers don't lie. Like he kind of laid out some of the opportunity, and when I started running some of the numbers, I'm like, the numbers don't lie. There's no way really with any job doing something similar to what I do, no way that working for somebody else I'm ever going to have the opportunity um to to be that financially successful. There's just again there's a cap, and what I love about the idea of franchising, there's just no cap. You grow as big as you want to grow. I mean, it's there is nobody's telling you this is how much you can make. And for me, I don't know why that's so important. And like again, I don't have aspirations to make $1 billion. I really don't. But knowing that there's not a cap was a like in realizing that and talking with Rob, that was what made me think, okay, I have more control over my future. And hey, you grow it to a certain point, you want to keep doing it and keep it there, you want to sell it. There was also other options of no plans to get out there and work in it for 5 years and then sell it if it's successful, but at least knowing that's out there is actually another big selling point to was another big selling point for me for franchising. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's more than just the cash flow that comes. That's the whole point of owning a business, right? You're actually building an asset that has
right,
value later on, and sometimes that value can supersede the cash flow that happened in the 5 or 10 years preceding. But I want to,
right,
again, you hit the process really well. I think, when I'm looking at brands to invest in myself as a franchisee, I think it's important we start with what we see from the brand, right? You mentioned the video and getting to look at the numbers in the FDD. That's all great. But for folks kind of watching along at home here, what's really important, and Drew hit on it pretty quickly, is he really focused on the conversations with the franchisee. That's about, often about a month or 6 weeks into the process, sometimes a little faster, but you'll get the opportunity to talk to the franchisees. And Drew said it absolutely beautiful. What you want to hear is, of course, are they happy and are they profitable? But what you really want to know from that point is, am I like you? because somebody's successful and doing really well and happy in a franchise, unless you have the skill sets that they have, unless you kind of see the world the same way,
Yeah.
there's not a great chance, or there's not as good as a chance that you're going to have that same success. So, for us, that's everything. When we've only got there's almost 4,000 franchises out there. We've been through hundreds and hundreds of them, studying them, and only 100 or so have made our list of brands that we recommend. And we do all of that, but it's validation, whether I'm investing personally or we're making a recommendation and bringing them into better days. You hit it. That's so important. And then I think the other thing I want folks to hear what Drew just said then was, this is really important and often underrated or even missing from people's franchise research process, but understanding the culture of the brand. And you can get a little bit of that certainly from a conversation with a franchisee, but the best place is to spend time with the franchisor, the executive team, the leadership, anybody running that brand. And you'll get the opportunity, like Drew did, to do that on a call, and in some cases, an invitation to the headquarters too. So, Drew, a very astute recap, and the right recap too of the process that you went through to get to the decision. Now,
Yeah.
fast forward to today. Where are you at? Talk me through. Probably, I'm assuming a little bit of an excitement phase right now, but let's talk through what's next for Chick-fil-A and when you're you're
Yeah.
you're moving into the next phase.
Man, I'm excited and I know slightly nervous. Again, I'm giving up a job. I'm giving up my W-2, my consistent paycheck, and immediately assuming a payroll. So, because we have chosen to bring a full-time person on board. You don't have to do that with this brand, but I had the right person. So, basically, I've got 8 more days with Chick-fil-A September. So yeah, it's yeah, 8 more days with Chick-fil-A. That'll take us to September 11th. We're going to do a big celebration there. Again, my son, he runs cross country. We've got a big cross country race that weekend, so I've got 2 days that I'm really not working on anything. So the 13th and 14th, he runs on the 12th and 13th, he runs on the 13th. And then, so I leave Chick-fil-A Thursday, and then Sunday night I fly to Dallas for a 2 week training. Again, another big benefit of why I did choose this brand is because they have a full 2 week training where it's a week in the classroom and then a week in the field. So you actually get to go out and practice some sales in real time with people who at the headquarters who are doing it. And so so 2 weeks of training, and then that brings us home that toward the end of September, and then September 29th, which is again, today's September 3rd. September 29th, we are going live with our business. And that's Monday, September 29th. At our goal is at 8 a.m. We're going. Now, what are we doing that day? I have no idea. I'm going to learn that in training. So the good news is I actually don't know logistics, but we've chosen a company who it's really best to stick to their program, which is a lot of times I think probably best in the franchise world. Not bringing all the preconceived notions, but yeah, our plan is to learn. Hey, what are we doing that first week? But September 29th going live. Again, this is a brand new territory. We're not buying existing territory, so we have zero customers. And so we're building it from the ground up. So we're going to start hitting it hard. And I've got some, again, just out of thin air, I've come up with these. I've got some pretty audacious goals for next year. You just even sales wise, I have no idea if they're realistic or not, but I've always thought it's important to have sales goals out there. So we're going to figure out what we're doing these first 3 months. Vince is a full-time, he'll be full-time in sales and operations with me. And we've got 2 territories we're starting out with, so we'll be splitting those up. And we'll both be out the field every day, Monday through Friday specifically. And then the special part about us is my wife's actually going to be working in the business full time as well. She's very much a great administrator and support organization. I'm not. I'm very clear that I'm not a super organized person, but the good news is I've got somebody really good at that. And so we'll all three hit it September 29th, and go from there. This brand gives you a business coach as well, so he'll be visiting us out. He'll actually be here with us for about a week, about 3 weeks in. So, and then yeah, grow sales. guy, build relationships, get customers. Again, heavy on the build relationships for future sales. And yeah, we'll see. We're going to be leaning on Speedy Freight for some guidance in that. So
Well, I will tell you this, Drew, my first franchise business, I did start, my wife was my first hire, and we ended up partnering on that. And
that's awesome.
good luck, man. I'll tell you, good
Yeah.
luck. No, jokes aside, there's something special about it.
Yeah.
Can be challenging, but there's something
Yep.
special about building something for family, but building with family too. And and,
Yep.
and I think you're going to enjoy
Absolutely.
that ride. I can hear the
Yeah.
excitement
Yeah.
in your voice. It's tangible.
It's
I'm pumped for you. This is why we do what we
awesome.
do at Better Days, is to make
Yeah.
sure that folks like you get matched only with really solid franchise brands, right? Make that right introduction, and just it's just inspiring to be able to play a small role in helping people live out their dreams of business ownership with good brands. So, hey, thanks
Awesome.
for choosing Better Days to work with. And once again, we couldn't be more excited for you. We're going to be cheering you along the whole way. So thanks, Drew, and congratulations again, my man.
Hey, thank you so much, and it's my pleasure. You guys have been an absolute joy to work with, and if I did it 100 more times, I would choose Better Days every single time. So,
My man, thank you so much. Awesome.
uh,
Well, very good. We'll edit it up there, but that was awesome. Like again, I meant every word. I'm really excited for you. It just
yeah,
sounds like you've got the right mentality, the right skill sets. You know this is not going to be a walk in the park, and I think they're the folks that do the best, that are ready for that. So
yeah,
yeah,
awesome.
very cool. We'll keep in touch. I know that Rob's going to keep
Yeah,
checking in on you and let
yeah,
us know how training goes. If there's anything you need along the way, that's what we're here for.
that's awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you guys, and like I told Rob, if I have anyone who's interested in going through and talking about franchising, I mean, they're coming to you guys. So I've no make no mistake, if I have those conversations, they'll be reaching out to you guys. So
Oh, we appreciate that, Drew. You're awesome. Awesome. Well, congrats again, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.